Over the years, I've had a lot of people ask me about what if their divorce was God's will? Apparently, there's a popular teacher on YouTube that teaches that divorce can be God's will. And I can't tell you how many people have used that to support the fact that they didn't want to fight for their marriage or didn't seem to have any desire to. But we have to be careful, because the Bible says that in 2 Timothy chapter 4 that people will look for teachers who support the things that they want to believe. But listen, if you want to know what God's will is, this is the only authority we have, this book. If you've watched all of my videos, you know that there's a video where I actually thank God that He did not answer my prayers and save my first marriage. And I say that I was thankful for that, and I am, because if that would have happened, I wouldn't have my current wife and children. And deep down, I wanted that so much, what I have now. But the real question is, does that mean my first divorce was God's will? I don't believe so. How could I believe that? Ephesians 5:22-23 says that marriage was created by God as a picture of the covenant-keeping love of God for His church. And so I can't believe that divorce is ever God's will. Unfortunately, we don't have a choice sometimes. And just because something happens, though, doesn't mean it was God's will. Now, some people believe that. Personally, I think that the doctrine that says that everything that happens is God's will is one of the most offensive, putrid doctrines that anyone could ever ascribe to a holy and righteous God. Does that make me angry? You better believe it does. Did it make me angry when years ago, when that shooter massacred a room full of kindergarten little children? When so-called believers who thought they were comforting people went online and told people that they should take heart, that it was God's will and that He would turn it out for good. That made me angry. How can you ascribe such evil to a holy, loving God simply because you can't explain why horrific things happen? Is it God's will when a woman gets raped? Of course not. Does the fact that the same woman has a child from that rape who turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to her, does that mean it was God's will in the first place that she get raped? Of course not. But that woman can thank God for that child. And just like I thank God that He didn't save my first marriage, she may thank God for that beautiful child. You know, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20 says that God can take circumstances that were meant by Satan to hurt us and use them to accomplish good things. It's true. God is able to transform any situation into something beautiful by His grace, and we can thank God for that. We can understand how it all works, and I don't believe we should even try. How arrogant, anyway, to think that we could understand a God whose thoughts and ways are so far above ours. Now, in addition to people using reasoning about God's will to justify what they really want, I think that other people who fought hard for their marriage and it didn't work out sometimes say that it must have been God's will. Maybe because it makes them feel better. And I get that. But it doesn't have to be like that. There is a place in God where His grace is enough. People need to stop talking about God's will in terms of their own wants and needs, about whether God's will, is it God's will that they get this job or that job, or they marry this person or that person. I've talked about this before, but I believe God's will has a lot less to do with that kind of stuff and a whole lot more to do with what we do. Because, we can know what God's overall will is because this book tells us. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says that it is God's will that we give thanks in all circumstances for everything that happens to us. Why is that? Because we're trusting Him. And that's His will for us, that we have faith. 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 3 says it's God's will that you be sanctified and that you avoid sexual immorality. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 4 teaches us that God's will is that all people be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. You see, God's will is more about what we do in our circumstances than our circumstances. If you want to remain in God's will and do God's will, then act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. Micah 6:8. May the grace of Jesus be with you.